Everybody wants to feel inner peace and happiness, but the way in which we go about doing that in modern life leads us to quite the opposite. So right now in modern life, we see people that are more stressed out. We have more anxiety. People are not sleeping well. There's all kinds of health issues.
Holden is a doctor of Chinese medicine and an internationally acclaimed Qi Gong master. He guides individuals struggling with low energy and stress to optimize their physical and mental well-being. Through ancient Qi Gong practices, he teaches transformative methods to convert stress into vitality.
Giving a talk in front of, your colleagues, or you're having to do a presentation in front of your boss, or get on a Zoom call and speak in front of a whole bunch of people, that'll put us into stress mode. And it is not a life-threatening situation. So when there's not a life-threatening situation, it is your work to transform that stress. And how do we transform stress so it doesn't become chronic? And that is the key. Chronic stress leads to physical ailments.
How can they become more aware of their energy in the body and use it to heal themselves?
If you have too much tension in your neck and shoulders, or your jaw, or you have digestive issues, whatever it is, you can trace it back probably to some kind of emotional stress that's either happened in your life or that continues to be perpetuated in your life. And the question is, how do I discharge that and get it out of my body? And my answer is,
Where are you based again?
I'm in Santa Cruz, California.
Oh, how beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, you can see the ocean out there.
Oh, living the life. Very
Living the
cool.
life, yeah.
Love it. Are you going to
And
MBU this
where are
year?
you?
I'm in New Delhi, the city of the Mad
You're in
Lion.
New Delhi. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
from one
neat.
extreme to the other. Compare your life and mine right now. Actually, we live in
Oh,
a
yeah.
farmhouse. So it's like peace in the chaos. We have a farmhouse. So it's away from
Oh,
the city. So it's all
oh,
the
okay.
farm life. Yeah, very organic and healthy and all that. Clean air, fresh air.
Oh, how wonderful. How
Yeah.
wonderful. Oh,
Yeah.
I've never been to India, and I would love to go at some point.
Yeah, you should. Very much all the work that you're doing. I know it's more like Asian Chinese, but India has, a similar roots. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Very similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here and really
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah. I'm
That's
just like,
exciting. You're doing, is this a podcast you've been doing for a little while now, right?
yeah, you're like my 106th episode. I just
Okay.
crossed 100 a few weeks ago. So yeah.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah.
How
But finally here
wonderful.
we are after all the back and forth. It's taken us a while to get
Yes,
here.
we have, right?
Yeah. But I'm just
Yeah.
like I love all that you do because I'm a huge advocate of holistic health and all things natural, which is why I'm
Yeah.
so drawn to your work. And I love
Yeah.
how you help people trace back to the essence of the human body that we all seem
Yeah.
to have forgotten in the chaos of our modern lives. In
Yeah.
fact, I used to start my day with my days with your MB quest on Qigong, and I've lost momentum, admittedly, recently, and I feel the effect as much. I'm feeling very
Hmm.
off-centered. So this conversation hopefully be a reminder to get back in the rhythm of things. But let's
Yes.
just dive right in, right? Like,
Okay, let's do. Let's do.
what do you think we have missed understanding about energy or chi, as we call it?
I think there's a great misunderstanding. I think there's a superstition of the material world that it's everything, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just false. Most things in life are ruled by these invisible forces. Invisible forces can be external to us, like gravity, electromagnetism. Even all our technology is ruled by these invisible forces. There's no more cords and connections to walls and whatnot. It's all through the airwaves. And it's important to remember that we as human beings operate through these invisible forces as well. The invisible force of your consciousness, the invisible force that beats your heart and breathes your lungs. I mean, even emotions are invisible, yet we feel them so dramatically. So in ancient Chinese, these invisible forces within us were called qi. And qi simply meant aliveness, the force that keeps you alive. There's this bioelectricity within us that is doing everything that we need to sustain this life. And we can optimize that qi, that life force energy, through very specific things, breathing, stretching, flowing movements, meditation, all help to optimize the way qi circulates within you. So if we ask ourselves the questions, how do I want to lead my best life? How do I want to be fulfilled, happy, and healthy? We need to work with these invisible forces within us. We need to work with our consciousness, our emotions, our mind, our feelings, and this life force energy to optimize it so that we sustain our optimal level of energy within us.
Well said. So, are you saying that because of the invisible element involved here, we have taken this less seriously or perhaps for granted?
We have, and we've put our attention on the things and all the stuff in life,
Yeah.
thinking that the stuff will give us some feeling and peace within us. So everything we're seeking really is this invisible force. We want that new house because we want security. We want, a place to live that will give us a feeling of contentment. Everybody wants to feel inner peace and happiness, but the way in which we go about doing that in modern life leads us to quite the opposite. So right now in modern life, we see people that are more stressed out. We have more anxiety. People are not sleeping well. There's all kinds of health issues. And the important thing to recognize is that everything's connected. Our emotional stress leads to physical ailments. Interestingly enough, stress isn't something real. It is an invisible force as well, because stress is a perception.
Mm.
And that might be a little bit shocking to people that,
Yeah.
wait, what? Stress isn't real? My
Come
stress
live
is
my
real.
life. You know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. I was doing a Qigong class for a group of third graders. They're all 10 years old. And there was a TV crew filming it. And the camera person said to this little 10-year-old girl, he was like, "Why do you need Qigong? You're only 10 years old. You don't have any stress." And she looked at him and said, "You haven't met my brother." And so
So
I was
cute.
like,
I
you know
love
what?
that.
Everybody has stress,
Yeah.
whether we're, wealthy, in poverty, we're
Yeah.
10 years old or
It's
85
the
years
human
old.
condition. It's just a human
It's,
mind.
it's the human mind and how we perceive our life. And so it is really up to us to
Mm.
transform stress into vitality. As we say in Qigong, that stress is just energy. It can be a perception. And yes, there are some very real life stresses, but stress is really when you are in survival mode. Is your life being threatened? And that's the good question to ask, because some people, that might be a yes. I might be walking down a dark alley at night and there's a group of people that I can't see coming up. That's probably a pretty good time to go into fight or flight and take our energy into our muscles. When I was a little kid, came face to face with a grizzly bear, and I felt what stress mode is like firsthand, where
Where were
your
you?
pupils.
Colorado?
I was in Alaska.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
I was fishing. My dad was like, "You're 13. You're a man now. We're going fishing in Alaska."
Ouch.
And one of the first days, this grizzly bear came walking through the bush, and I was about 3 feet away from me. And I'm sure in the internal dialogue in my mind was that he looked at me and said, a snack." And so the guide said, "Do not run," because everything in me was like, I am going to run as fast as I can. But, as soon as you run, the grizzly
You're
bear thinks,
finished.
I'm going to chase you.
Yeah.
So we walked away very slowly. And sure enough, the grizzly bear thought, you know what? The fish in the river look much more interesting than that little kid. But
That's
you know what?
crazy.
It was a crazy story. Yeah, that was my first experience of, like, when I look back on it, I go, oh, that's exactly what stress is. Because later, when I had to give a speech in front of my class, I felt the same thing. Now, one actually is a
I love
life-threatening
that
situation,
analogy. Yeah.
but giving a talk in front of your colleagues, or you're having to do a presentation in front of your boss, or get on a Zoom call and speak in front of a whole bunch of people, that'll put us into stress mode. And it is not a life-threatening situation. So when there's not a life-threatening situation, it is your work to transform that stress. And how do we transform stress so it doesn't become chronic? And that is the key. Chronic stress leads to physical ailments. In fact, all the recent research is showing that almost all of our primary care doctor visits is related to emotional stress.
100%.
So that, yeah, go ahead.
No, exactly, because what you've said reminds me of something I say very often, which is as much as we pride ourselves of being logical, rational beings, emotions drive everything we do. What we're
Mm,
chasing, what we're running away from. So emotions are the center of our lives. It's just the human
big
experience.
time.
And I guess the more you have a grip on them, the better off you'll
Hmm.
be in life.
Yeah. You know, and this is such a great point that you make, because emotional intelligence, even more than, mental intelligence, determines how successful we are in our lives. So instead of
Definitely.
IQ, it's EQ.
Yeah. That's my
Emotional
phrase.
intelligence
Yeah.
is so, so important. And, emotions rule our lives
Yeah.
in many, many ways. And emotions are invisible, like we were talking about, if we loop back around, because we can't do open heart surgery and see how much love you have in your heart, and it's an invisible force that does have chemical reactions in our bodies. But first we feel this energy, then the cascade of chemistry happens through us. And chronic stress is really the deterrent of leading our best lives. So what do we do about it? How do we transform stress back into vitality? Because remember, folks, you are hardwired for stress. We don't have to teach you how to feel stressed out. There's no courses that I teach
It's a
on
part of the
how to
package.
worry. Yeah, it's something we're hardwired, because we're hardwired for danger and survival mode. And so as soon as we go into survival mode, whether it's sitting in traffic, whether it's thinking about a presentation, whether it's giving a public speech, your body tightens up. So if you have too much tension in your neck and shoulders, or your jaw, or you have digestive issues, whatever it is, you can trace it back probably to some kind of emotional stress that's either happened in your life or that continues to be perpetuated in your life. And the question is, how do I discharge that and get it out of my body? And my answer is, you do more Qigong practice, because that is the greatest tool to transform stress and bring it back into vitality, because energy is energy. Whether we're holding energy as stress or we're holding energy as happiness, it is just energy, and we can transform one kind of energy to another. And to truly be masterful at working with your energy, you learn how to do that. That is one of the most important things to do in life.
So the big two facts here we've discussed is about stress. One, that all stress is created in the mind, and secondly, stress is a result of how we perceive and interpret events. So it's all a mind result. So how does
Hmm.
practicing qigong, which is a physical tapping exercise, from what I understand, does
Hmm.
that help clear or help ease the mind as well?
Absolutely. Yeah,
How is that?
because Qigong is a moving meditation. Some people have a hard time just sitting down and quieting their mind
Sure.
and meditating. So Qigong, their solution is, let's get the body moving. If the body is moving, the mind will follow. So if you move your body slowly, your mind will slow down. And even seated meditations use this, because one of the first things in meditation they say is slow down your breath, create deeper, slower breath. So your
Sure.
body's doing something. If you slow down your breath, your mind will slow down. Now, you can take it a step further. If you slow down a movement, you create a very simple movement, you slow down a movement of your body, you slow down the breathing of your body, and two things happen. One is your mind becomes calm. And two, because you're moving with relaxation, you absorb more energy. So Qigong is an energy cultivation practice. We want to we want to basically lower our stress and increase our energy. So if you want less stress and more energy, this might be a very interesting practice to you.
That's beautiful. And because the mind is as stubborn as it is,
Yeah.
how often or what's the likelihood of practicing qigong, like moving physically, but the mind being elsewhere, doing its own number? Like, what would you do then?
that is, that will happen, of course, just like meditation. And the practice is noticing, being aware, being observant. Notice when the mind wanders and bring it back to the present moment, bring it back to what you're doing. it is easier when your body's doing something because your mind, you give your mind something to pay attention to. And I think it's important to remember that your body is always in the present moment, but your mind rarely is. Your body is always in the present moment, but your mind rarely is. When people say, have you ever had an out of body experience? Most people are having an out of body experience all the time.
No
You're
shit.
thinking about the past, you're thinking about the future, you're daydreaming, you're out
Yeah.
of your body, you're
Bang
not in the
on.
moment. And this is a great tool and resource to help ground you and bring you back to the moment. And the thing is, it's not that we don't ever want to be thinking about the future or the past. We do. That's what the mind is designed to do. But grounded in the present moment, we can look into the future and put attention on what is inspiring us, what we want to create, what we want to manifest. And when we look into the past, we can really be conscious of recognizing and paying attention to what we appreciated and what we're grateful for, so that our present moment has a higher vibration. If I look into my past and I'm thinking about, God, remember yesterday, I had such a good time with my kids and we were at the beach, and I'm remembering all these wonderful things. My present moment energy goes up. If I look into my past and go, oh, remember how stressful that work situation was and what that person said to me that I didn't like, all of a sudden my present moment, my energy goes down. And so most of the time, when the mind scans into the past or looks into the future, we start paying attention to the things we're either worried about or that we didn't like. And we create a lower vibration in the present moment. Even though everything in the present moment is just fine, when everything is just fine in the present moment, the mind likes to scan for danger in the future. And so you can have no stress in your present moment, and you can fabricate stress by thinking about something in the future. And then that stress will be lived in the moment as if it's happening. And that's what we want to stop doing, because that stress is lowering your energy. It's making your body tight and tense, and it's creating a lot of pain in our physiology. Pain goes up when we have stress. Pain goes down when we relax. So if you have headaches, back pain, any kind of pain in your body, you want to get out of chronic stress to help that healing process.
And Qi Gong, through his movement, helps release that tensed and stressed energy from the body. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what it does so well. And we can even take your listeners and viewers through an exercise or two so that they can feel
Mm.
what chi is for themselves. You see, every culture through time, almost every culture had a word for life force energy. What is the force that keeps you alive? I was talking to a doctor friend of mine, and he's very, very Western medicine oriented. He's like, look, Lee, I'm a doctor. I don't believe in this chi stuff. I believe in the facts. I believe in what I can
Science.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, well, do you believe you're alive? And he was like, well, yeah, of course I'm alive. Well, what is the force that keeps you alive? And he's like, well, that's just a mystery. And it's also self-evident. It's evident that we are alive, and nobody knows. If you look at your body closely and deeply enough, you run into the mystery. So you can look at the heart and you say, well, the heart is a pump that pumps the blood. And you can look at culture and you say, well, people say, I love you with all my heart. He has a courageous heart. We have all these sayings about the heart and the emotions related to the heart. And if you ask a doctor about the emotions, are the emotions in the heart? They'll say, no, go talk to a psychologist. That's not my job. And then if you talk to a psychologist and say, what about our spirit? Where does our spirit reside? And they say, you know what? Go talk to a spiritual person. That's not my job. And so we become fragmented beings because the doctors, the psychologists, the shamans, the priests, the monks, they don't never communicate
It's all
to each other. And
compartmentalized.
it's all compartmentalized. Exactly. And so we feel fragmented. We don't feel like a cohesive wholeness within us. And wholeness is what creates healing. It comes from the same root word: wholeness, healing, and holy. They're all from the same root word. And so when we feel integrated, when we feel that our spirits are high, our emotions are balanced, our mind is clear, guess what? Your body will heal. your body will heal. And when our body is full of energy and we feel that energy in and through us, we will be more inspired about our lives. When we are depleted of energy, we will be more emotionally stressed. We'll be agitated. I look at other parents. When the parents are low energy and their kids ask for just one more thing, parents snap. They say something brash, they say something abrasive, and we do that with our partners, in our relationships. When you're depleted of energy, you don't bring your best self into your life. When you're full of energy, you show up at a better version of yourself. So energy is key to really leading your best life, like we said. And being full of energy means that we feel more integrated, our emotions supporting our mind supporting our bodies, and everything feeling much more cohesive.
Beautiful. So, what has been the biggest shift in your life and journey through practicing Qigong?
It's interesting because I started with an injury. I was a collegiate soccer player, and I I was very excited about being on the team and playing. And I jumped up in the air on like the second game of the season, and somebody hit me under the legs, and I landed on my
Oh,
tailbone. And so the doctor said I was going to be out for the rest of the season. They gave me cortisone shots and painkillers, but actually the pain didn't go away. And the medication gave me a stomach ache. So now I had back pain and a stomach ache.
and how old were
And
you at the time?
I was 19.
Oh my God, no way.
Yeah. And so I was hobbling around class, trying to go to class. I could barely walk. I barely could get out of bed. And I remember as a kid, when I was 10 years old, I trained martial arts for some years. And this martial arts teacher, he was a Qigong master as well and an acupuncturist. So I went back home and he gave me some acupuncture and he showed me some Qigong exercises. And I kid you not, after the first treatment, I was like 75% better. I did 3 treatments and I was back playing. I was like
Ooh,
95% better. And I was like, why aren't more people doing this? This is amazing. And it was just a catalyst for me to explore energy work and
mm,
qigong and even practices like yoga and tai chi.
wow. So
And
your journey
as soon as
began very early. I love that. How lucky
I
are you?
did,
Wow.
yeah, it began really early. And I was studying psychology as well at UC Berkeley.
Mm.
And I was like, by my third year, I was like, I have not learned one thing to help people feel better. Not one breathing exercise, not one technique.
Wait,
And
what were they teaching you then? I'm more curious about that.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
So I was one day I was in the spiritual bookstore looking up books about qigong, and I found this book, uh, Transform Stress into Vitality. That was a qigong book about emotions.
Mm,
And I was like, this is so interesting because in this one book, I'm learning way more techniques on how to feel better than I had in the whole 3 years I'd been studying. And I bought the book. I walk outside, and on the telephone pole was a flyer with the author that I just bought, that he was going to be in town the next day teaching a
that's a
workshop.
crazy coincidence.
Crazy coincidence. So of course I was like, I have to
Definitely.
go. And luckily for me, I didn't have enough money. And I say luckily because I came in there and I was like, I really want to attend this workshop, but I don't have enough money. I'm a poor college student. Can I do some work for you guys? And so they hired me to work in their bookstore.
Oh man.
And
Wow.
every time this master came to town, I would work for him. And then when I graduated, I said, "Hey, can I have a job? I don't want to work in Silicon Valley at a desk." And he said, "Yeah, come to Thailand where my center is, and I want you to help me write books." He was a very prolific author with maybe 40 or 50 books, and I became his ghostwriter. So I did that for like all through my early 20s, back and forth to Thailand. And every time I went to Thailand, I also would stop in China and study with other qigong masters. I'd just go to the park, or I'd find somebody that was well known in the field. And so I learned a lot from a lot of different people. And by being a ghostwriter to this one master in Thailand, I was able to work with him very closely, one on one. I'd go to his house every morning before the workshop started. I'd really immerse myself in the studies. And then when I would come home, I would be like, how do I explain this to Silicon Valley workers? How do I explain this to my soccer player friends that are, just interested in making money and,
Yeah.
you know, doing the Western life thing? And so
Yeah.
I started developing a language that they would understand. And I started teaching wellness classes all through Silicon Valley and at sports clubs and fitness
No
clubs and
way. Wow.
all different centers. So I was teaching like 25 classes a week all over the place. And
Can I just interrupt you and ask, like, what were you
please,
promoting these classes as in wellness, but what within wellness?
I was calling them either Tai Chi classes
Yeah, but that's
or
still very
East.
woo woo for them, right? Like they didn't relate to
It
that
was because
language
this was
in
in
the
the
valley.
this was in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so people hadn't heard of, I mean, yoga was just coming onto the scene, but yoga was really kind of still a little bit weird. And when I said Qigong, nobody knew what Qigong was. So I would say, hey, Tai Chi classes, or sometimes I would call it Tai Chi and Qigong. And then I did something that, in retrospect, was very smart. I would call it Tai Chi or Qigong for upper back and neck pain, Qigong for low back
Oh.
pain, Qigong for stress. And so
Focus
people
on
would
the
be like,
problem area. Yeah.
I have upper back pain. And so my classes all of a sudden became really popular. Sometimes at the fitness club, they were one of the most popular classes. And um, over some years, I started saying, I'm going to make, it was a VHS tape. This goes back before your time, but it was a VHS tape. It was before DVDs. I made my first product because every time I would go to these places, I wanted people to practice.
Hmm.
And so I would sell these VHS tapes after my classes. And some years later, I did some DVDs. And, you know, Qigong is a practice that mirrors the movements of nature. So I wanted to go outside in nature and do something really artistic and beautiful. And so I filmed my practices by standing on a little platform, and I put it in the middle of a stream. And I did all the movements from the middle of the stream in the beautiful
Amazing.
redwood forest here in Santa Cruz. And because I did that PBS, public television here in America, they said we'll air it on one of our shows, and if it does well, we'll air it in other places. And well, I go to PBS in San Diego. The producer said you have one shot at this. If it does well, you'll get more airtime. If it doesn't do well, this is the last show. So she put a little
Wow.
pressure on me, and I was interviewed. I would show clips of my show. We talk, and it did really, really well. And immediately, like the next week, it went nationwide.
Wild.
So this show on Qigong
Wow.
all of a sudden went to 150 stations around the country. And you know what? I didn't even have a website at the time.
Wow.
If you Googled me, you got my home phone number. So it went everywhere, and I was getting like 50 calls a day at my home.
Amazing.
And people thought this was a weird thing that you could see somebody on TV and then just call them at home. But it was a really great thing for me because I could talk to people. I could see the impact of what these programs were doing for them, how it was helping, and that's sort of what launched my qigong business. And then I started making online courses and online education for all the different kinds of ailments, and it just sprung forth from there.
That's amazing. But man, like you've had so many blessings in disguise in your life. Like, wow. From the accident, from you being a college, I guess, broke kid, not having a job to getting a job because you wanted some work. That's amazing. Wow.
Yes,
What a
right.
story.
And it's an interesting thing to think about. Sometimes when you think this is the worst thing that could happen to you, it might be a blessing in disguise. So I think it's important to remember that some of the challenges in our lives are often just a catalyst. Like life is trying to put up some guardrails and nudge you in a different direction. And if we
As long as
listen
you're
to
open
that,
to seeing it that way, okay?
yeah. Yeah, if we frame it in our mind that way and we listen to it and we stand back and say, "Hey, why is this happening to me?" All of a sudden you might see those blessings in disguise as you were talking about, and some of the synchronicities and the coincidences. And, instead of just listening to your logical mind, listen to the wisdom of your heart and how
Mm,
life is trying to guide you into living your best life.
exactly. So I've always been very curious and confused about this, and maybe you can help me clarify. What's the difference between Qigong and Tai Chi.
And that's a great question. Tai Chi comes from the principles of Qigong. So Tai Chi is about 800 years old, where Qigong is about 4 or 5 thousand years old.
No way.
So it's much older. And the thinking is that Tai Chi took some of the martial arts aspects of, let's say, like Kung Fu, and integrated it with
Qigong.
Qigong
Oh,
principles.
I see. That's why those moments. Now it makes sense.
Yeah, so the movements are slow. The movements are done like a qigong style, but every application of the Tai Chi form, even though it's done with with qigong principles, has martial context. So another main difference is that qigong is much more, let's say, health oriented, where Tai Chi has its roots in martial arts. Most people practice Tai Chi these days more for energy cultivation and stress management in the same way that they would do Qigong. Tai Chi is harder to learn because it's one movement then another. It's like a kata. You do a whole sequence of movements that you have to learn. Where Qigong is a little bit more, let's say, like yoga, you don't have to learn anything. You come to a class, and it's very easy to get the benefits right away. So you get your energy movements, and one movement doesn't just repeat. One movement doesn't just go into another movement. That movement repeats for a couple of minutes. So you really get to immerse yourself into the energy of a particular flow, and then the movement might change 2 or 3 minutes later. So it's much easier. Qigong is much more accessible and easy to learn.
And would it be fair to say that Qigong is a slower practice as well, which is why people perhaps gravitate towards a more action oriented Tai Chi?
Hmm.
Or not really?
Tai Chi, both of them are slow.
Okay.
So Tai Chi is done very slowly as well. Um, the nice thing about Qigong is that, at least in my style of teaching Qigong, I do a warm up. So you get some exercise.
Yeah.
Warm up, you get some conditioning. Then I do stretches. So it's almost like you get a little bit of a yoga type of stretch through your body. And then you do the flows. Then you do these slow meditative flows. So that kind of combination, that alchemy of movement,
Hmm.
optimizes your energy. So over some 30 years and learning many, many different styles of Qigong, I've sort of created my own style of this formula where you warm up and exercise, you activate your Qi, you stretch your body out, you clear the tension, and then you go into these flows. And by the end, you just are in this pristine internal energy space, which just
Hmm.
feels so good. So I encourage people to try it,
Yeah.
see how it feels for you, and then most people are really astonished by how good they actually feel even after just one class.
I mean, your stuff is great. Like, it's so, so good. And I just got to get back in routine. Honestly, I'm just like, wow, I have to do this. I can't like delay this any further because I have
Yeah,
made my
you
mind
know
to
what I'll
that.
do? I'll give you some of my new programs to inspire you
Oh, insane.
as a
Thank you.
gift.
So I'm quite curious as a person, and I'm even more curious about the science of all of this, right? So, like, what is happening in the body through tapping and movement that creates such a massive energy shift in the system?
Mm.
Like, what's going on there exactly
Yeah,
internally?
and you said tapping. So, part of qigong is you activate acupressure points. So you might, let's say, tap on your chest, right in the center of your chest, kind of a Tarzan type of move. That point there is for emotional stress. And so if you tap on it, it helps to disperse stagnation, as it's called in qigong, and move energy. The saying is flowing water doesn't get stagnant, and the same is true for your body. So if your body's energy is moving, you won't get stagnant. We do not like stagnant chi in our bodies. Stagnation creates pain, tension, tightness, and the feeling of just being low. Like when our chest sinks and our chin drops down, it's like our chi is just not moving. And when chi doesn't move, it's funny. It's hard to then get your chi moving. It's hard to motivate. So if we have low motivation, it's like most people know what they should be doing, what they want to be doing, but they just, I just can't get myself to do it. It's
Classic human
probably the
problem.
chi is stagnant. Yeah.
Yeah. So, metaphorically and quite literally, the body does open up its meridians, and hence energy systems and the pathways open up and block those. unblock those blocked, stagnated parts of your emotions, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's going to unblock, let's say, this is a good word to use, unblock your energy in many different areas. So when we're feeling, like sitting in traffic, and you're
Yeah.
getting frustrated, you had to be somewhere and you're sitting in traffic. This is a perfect feeling of emotional stagnation, the beginning of emotional stagnation. Now, over times, what happens is that our emotions get stagnant or blocked. We might just call it frustration. We're just frustrated. Many things happen throughout the day that are frustrating because life doesn't just go the way we plan it or that we expect it. It shows up in many surprising ways. Now, when something happens, you're like, there shouldn't be traffic here. I was just doing this. I was picking up my daughter and I was like, it's 10:30 in the morning. Why is there traffic here? And I was running late. And I didn't want her to be disappointed. I could feel myself, my chest tightening up, my neck and
Stiffening
shoulders
up.
tightening
Yeah.
up. I felt frustrated. And I was like, you know what? When I'm in the face of something I can't control, the best thing to do is to relax. Because me tightening my body, gripping the steering wheel, cussing at the other drivers, going over in my mind why this shouldn't be happening, it doesn't help the situation. It only makes me tight. It only makes my energy stagnant. So what I did is I put on a song that I really liked. I took some deep breaths. I shifted my attitude. I started thinking about what fun things I'm going to be able to do when I pick up my daughter. I shifted everything about it. I started imagining a future scenario that was pleasant. I was changing my physiology. I sat up taller. I breathed deeper. I tapped on my chest with one hand because the other hand is on the wheel. And you know what? By the time I got there, she was running a little late. She didn't even notice that I was 15 minutes late. We had a great time, blah, 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 blah. And I felt way better, which was, I could have gotten there and been all tight and wound up and started complaining to her about the traffic. And, it could have just cascaded into a whole different scenario. And that's what just happened. So we can be in charge of our energy. We can't be in charge of the traffic or the weather or other people's feelings or thoughts, but we can be in charge of our own. And so if we take charge of our own energy, then we can feel empowered. When we feel disempowered, all of a sudden we feel out of control. And that's when we start to feel much lower in our energy.
That is so well articulated. It's like, honestly, it's like every event in life is nothing but a constant test of how you'll react, right? And how you
Yes.
rise above what's happening. It's just that every single day. And there's so many chances, opportunities testing us over and over again. It's insane.
Yeah. It is so true. Yeah. That is a test. And remember, when you face your powerlessness, that means the things you can't control, what do you do? What do you do? Are you going to tighten up your neck and shoulders? Are you going to, when we tighten up, we change our breathing. So one thing to do that you can control always is your breath. So if you take a slow, deep breath through your nose, and that means like 5 seconds on the inhale and 5 seconds on the exhale, all of a sudden you're going to shift out of stress mode in your nervous system and into more relaxation mode. And people can try it right now. Do a 5 second inhale and a 5 second exhale, and you'll feel a shift happening. You do that 3, 4, 5 times in a row, and it's very difficult to be stressed out and breathe slowly at the same time. Now you add
Well,
that breathing and a little bit of a movement, and all of a sudden you are in charge of your own internal energy. You don't want life to be in charge of your internal energy. You don't want to be
mm,
dictated by life circumstances and other people's energy. You want to be in control of it.
mm,
And the interesting thing about Qi Gong, the Gong means skill at working with what? Skill at working with your Qi, with your energy.
mm,
And that can be mind, emotions, or body. You want to be skillful at working with your own energy.
love that. So, leveraging breath in the moment also calms the mind, puts it at ease.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When one thing to do, people say, well, I can't calm my mind. Well, you don't have to. You can change your breathing and you can use your mind in different ways. You control your attention and you control your breath. So I can say, put your attention on the chair that you're sitting on behind you. And you could, oh, yeah, I can feel that.
Mm.
And you could, can you feel the clothes on your skin? Yep, I can do that. So can you think about what you ate for breakfast? Okay, yeah, I can do that too. Can you
Mm.
imagine what you're going to make tonight for dinner? And you can imagine something in the future. You've just controlled your mind. Now you do that with some breathing at the same time. You have skillfully started to work with your energy. Unskillful working with the energy is just habituated mental patterns where we're just like constantly focusing on the things that we didn't like, don't appreciate, or worried about. It really lowers our energy. So that is the work to do for us as human beings. That is the practice.
Mm.
How am I going to shift my thoughts? How am I changing my body? How am I changing my breath? What can I do in my body to make energy circulate in an improved way? And that might be a yoga posture,
Yeah.
that might be a Qigong exercise. All those things work really, really well.
So, with all this beautiful work that you do and have been doing for a number of years, do you have experienced low energy or you've outgrown that state?
It's interesting. That is a really great question. What I do is I think about energy, let's say on a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is you're just, that is like chronic fatigue. You just have no energy. It's really hard to get off the couch or out of bed. Um,
I'm
like
guessing you'll need
two,
help
three,
then.
four. What's that?
I'm guessing you'll need help then in that state.
You would need help. You need help. You need a different strategy, like lying in bed and doing breathing, slow breathing exercises, and working maybe on some pressure points. When you're those 0, 1, and 2, you need your team of helpers. You need some acupuncture. You need some massage. You need something to get you out of that state. Um, a lot of people live below 5. I would say they're just like, between 4 and 6. Like when you think you feel really good, you're at a 6, and when you're feeling not, just like, oh man, I'm so tired and stressed out at the end of a long day, and maybe you're also parenting, and now you're just like, oh my god, I'm so depleted and stressed out. You're at like a 3. So what for me, when I feel like I hit 5, maybe I've been traveling, I have 4 children, I'm running a business, I'm like, okay, now I feel my energy dropping down. I do something. I don't wait till it gets to 3. I like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit depleted. I'm going to go do a practice. I'm going to go out to nature. I'm going to go get some body work. I'm going to have a strategy in place that when I feel low, I'm going to replenish my energy. And so I just don't let myself drop down that low, because I put my floor at, let's say, 5. And so
Mm.
having a replenishing energy strategy in your life is really important. And you can even tell, like I tell my kids, like, guys, I'm feeling depleted. I'm going to give myself a timeout. Before I go make dinner, I'm going to go out into the yard and I'm going to do some qigong, and then I'm going to come back. And everybody knows that when I come back, I am a better version of myself. And
Love
when
that.
they and when they get stressed out with school and friends or whatever, I'm like, time out. I'm hearing in your voice, you're getting stressed, you're unmotivated. Let's go do a practice, or here, I'm going to put on some headphones with a meditation, take a little
Oh,
rest.
cool,
And
man.
it's just a replenishing strategy.
How old are your kids?
I have twin 16-year-olds, a 13-year-old, and a 3-year-old.
You have 4 kids?
I have 4
Wow.
daughters. Yeah,
4 girls?
4 girls.
Wow. Full
So now you
house.
know the real reason I do qigong.
That's amazing. You can never obviously be bored in that house. Amazing. Um,
Yeah.
what was I going to ask? So, is it true that most of your stress or our stress in the body is like stored in the lower parts of the body, like your hip joints and your thighs
Mm.
and legs? Is
That's
that
that's
true?
a that's a great question, because everybody stores stress differently. Stress usually has a change in your breathing. So we perceive something to be stressful. We perceive a frustration, whether it's traffic, a presentation, whatever thought in our mind, and our breath changes. Your breath is always related and linked to your emotional energy. So the stress pattern of breathing is shallow. So it's usually in the chest. and it's shallow, right? And what it does is it puts a lot of tension into the neck and shoulders, upper back, neck, shoulders, jaw. It's depleting for the energy in the lower body. So, yes, it does put strain on the lower body. The lower body gets stressed from repetitive movement or repetitive something like sitting too long puts stress on our
Yeah.
low back and legs.
I have this all the time, honestly. I know exactly what you're talking about right now.
Yep. And sitting in chairs is sort of a modern life epidemic. I just read an article that sitting is the new
New
smoking,
smoking, yeah.
which is really great because it just showcases qigong principles of stagnation. If you sit too long, your qi stagnates,
Mm.
and it's really detrimental to your overall health. And all you have to do is watch people after a long plane flight. Everybody's been sitting for 6 hours. Nobody gets off the plane and says, God, I feel so good and so relaxed and so rested. And we're like, oh man. I mean, I guess maybe in first class, but you know, if you're tight and you're not able to move, the body really doesn't feel good. So my suggestion is every hour or 2 hours, you get up and do 5 minutes of movement.
Yeah, great way to go about it. And for people
Yeah.
who are very new to this stuff, Qigong, Tai Chi, all this stuff, like, how can they become more aware of their energy in the body and use it to heal themselves?
That is a great question because it is all about awareness. Most people aren't aware of their chi. They don't know what it feels like. We might be aware of our emotions. So remember, emotions are chi. Everything is chi. Everything is energy because we're talking about life. So chi just simply means aliveness, it's life force, and it can be any aspect of you, whether it's something as tangible as your physical body or your emotion, or something as intangible as your consciousness or your soul. It all has an energy component to it, and energy is something we can work with. So, yeah, I think it's just important to be aware of energy, how it works, and the feeling. So energy is something that we feel, and we can take people through a little exercise so they can feel their energy if they want
Let's do
through
it.
some pressure points on your fingers. The only thing is, don't do this if you're driving, because you're going to put your fingernails of both hands together, and you just rub them back and forth like this. So the ends of your acupuncture meridian lines, meridian means a pathway, they end at the fingertips and at the nails. So when you rub back and forth like this, you're stimulating acupressure points. And this little technique is good for reviving consciousness or bringing energy to your mind. And it just showcases the feeling of energy in your hand. So go back and forth vigorously, go a little faster, take a deep breath. Good. And then if you just put your hands in your lap, palms face up, you feel buzzing, tingling. The
Damn,
energy
yes.
has been activated. You feel it?
Wow, it's like very, like loudly vibrating. It's like
It's
electric
loudly
shock.
vibrating. Good.
Yeah.
Good. And so
Yeah.
now imagine that feeling that you have in your hands in your whole body. That's what a Qigong class is designed to do. This is get
Ah.
that energy activated and moving in your whole body.
So the answer to my question is practice Qigong, guys. And then you'll become aware of your energy systems and start using it for more better like things like healing and stuff. So
You
tell
said it.
me, is modern mainstream medicine and health system, are they more open to this thing, to this practice? And are there any clinical trials being done to test before after effects through Qigong? Like,
Uh, I would love to do more clinical trials. In China, there's a lot. There's a lot. It just needs to get translated and really done in a Western medicine type of sense. That is something definitely on my to-do list. I'd love to do that because I,
yeah.
I hear from people every single day because in my classes I do a 20-minute Q&A beforehand, so people come up and ask me questions, and I help to solve problems from a Chinese medicine perspective.
Mm.
And then we do our Qigong class. So I get to hear from people 3 or 4 times a week. And I'm seeing almost miraculous results with people's health conditions, whether it's pain whether it's neurological issues, cancer, people just get incredible results. And the reason is that when you get out of stress, your body has an intelligent healing power within it
Mm.
that gets activated. You already have a healer within you. It just isn't lit up when you're stressed out. And so getting out of stress will help to self regulate, activate that internal healing power within you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really, really wish that very soon we see the day where you see this stuff being implemented in hospitals, like, mainstream,
Yeah.
like hospitals. Like, imagine an ideal world where all this stuff or practices replace the pharmacy industry, pharmaceuticals, right? Like
Mm.
the biggest scam in my view in America,
Yeah, right.
the money
It
making
is.
machine.
It's a big money making machine, and
Yeah.
sometimes Western medicine is amazing. Like
Yeah, of
I tell
course.
people,
I'm not denying that.
if you get in a car accident, you don't necessarily and break your arm, you don't go see your acupuncturist right away,
Mm.
or do a qigong class right then. No, that's the time. Emergency medicine, Western
Yeah.
medicine is great, but
But
for
America's gone too far with that. You know that, right? It's gone way
gone
too far. They forgot the
way too far.
fundamentals of.
So, when we're always using it, painkillers,
Mm.
painkillers, we're desensitizing our body's ability to communicate to our minds.
Yeah.
Pain is your body saying, "Hey, stop doing that. Don't sit in your chair on your laptop for 8 hours at a time." And people say, "You know what, body? I don't want to listen to you. I'm going to take a painkiller." Your body's trying to talk to you. So
Yeah.
to it's like a good friend. If a good friend was like trying to reach out and you just ignored them and ghosted them, all of a sudden they're not going to be too happy. And the same was true with our bodies. Listen to your pain because your body's trying to talk to you and give you a message. So you say, low back pain, what are you trying to tell me? It might be as simple as, hey, don't sit in the chair all day at work, then come home and sit all night in front of the TV. Move your body more. Often what your body's saying, do something different, but it also could be like, hey, maybe make a career change. Hey,
Yeah.
maybe this relationship isn't right for you anymore. It is talking to you, and we don't want to listen to
We
this
love shortcuts.
kinesthetic wisdom.
Yeah, we love shortcuts and quick
Yeah, we
fixes
do.
and quick hacks.
Yeah,
You need to get back on the morning show, by the way.
I
Or
do,
something
huh?
like that. Something like that,
I
whatever the current equivalent of that in America is.
Yeah,
Okay, well, this has been absolutely amazing and very insightful. So, thanks so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom, your presence, your insights. And before I let you go, a bit of a ritual. What is your version of an epic being?
an epic being. Oh, I mean, I love meeting epic beings, and it's people that have a childlike spirit and playfulness, and yet a wisdom of somebody who has lots of experience.
Mm,
So, it's this idea of the wise old sage with the
sage, yeah.
playful childlike spirit. And I met this qigong master. He was 98, and he came and did a demonstration, and he was doing it in a small room, but there was too many people in the room. And so he, 98 years old, stood on a chair with wheels on the bottom and did
No.
the whole class moving with these wheels, and the chair was even moving and he was moving,
Wow.
and he
Very
was
nice.
laughing, and he didn't speak any English, but he all of a sudden was doing like cloudy hands singing Que Sera Sera, and he was singing and then he was
And he
explaining
was
things,
98?
and he was 98 and he was
Damn.
laughing, and I was like, that is an epic being right there.
Damn right. So well
Yeah.
said. I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And just before we let you go, where would you like people to discover you, to find more about you and all your work in the world?
Fantastic. Thank you. HoldenQigong.com. Qigong is spelled Qigong. That's the hardest part of this practice, spelling it. Qigong. HoldenQigong.com. On there I have all kinds of programs for conditions, whether it's sleep or pain, high blood pressure, digestive issues. I have
Amazing.
routines um, cultivated and curated for those specific things. I have a weekly class and weekly classes, and then all the way up to a Qigong teacher training for people who want to get certified to teach.
Amazing. Thank you, Lee. This has
Thank
been
you. It's so good to
amazing.
see you. It's so good to be here with you. I loved all your questions. You're such a skillful interviewer.
Thank you. I appreciate that.